Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you, yes. Hello? I'm a loudspeaker.
This is Ben Garrison.
Nice to finally talk with you, Ben, and sorry for all the little mishaps involving Google Hangouts. For whatever reason, the system isn't working here, for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's working on mine, at least the test that I did with my wife, so I just don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's just my system.
I'm not a tech expert, so I can't get into the, I just don't, especially if I don't see what's going on in your end, so.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be working very well over my end, but yeah, this is how it's going and stuff like that. And thank you very much for coming on and stuff like that. It's very nice to finally speak with you and stuff like that. And yeah, sorry for all the little mishaps that were going on.
Okay, do you want to do it over the phone then, or?
Yeah, that'll be much better, much more convenient.
Okay.
All right. My first question to you.
You want to start?
Oh, okay. The first.
Okay, start now. All right. All right.
All right. The first question I wanted to ask you was that what first got you into drawing cartoons, and when did you decide to do political cartoons?
Well, I was, I've been drawing cartoons since I was a kid. And, I was in the newspaper business, so I drew a lot of cartoons and things. I didn't seriously start becoming a political cartoonist until 2009. And it started out more or less as protest cartoons. I wanted to draw something to protest all the big banks getting bailed out on the taxpayer dime for their crimes.
Yeah.
I saw the corruption, and I saw how who was really in charge, and I said, well, I can't do anything about it to vent my anger other than maybe draw some cartoons. And I expected a few people to see them, and I would be happy if maybe 100 people saw my cartoons to start. I never expected for them to take off like they have, but I'm one of the few conservative cartoonists. The vast majority of editorial cartoonists are lefties.
Yeah. How does it feel to be like one of the few conservative cartoonists? Because I know you and guys like A.F. Branca, I think his name is, were like some of the bigger names of themselves as like conservative cartoonists. How do you feel to be essentially like like the few conservative cartoonists out there, or at least big name ones?
I'm sorry, what are you asking? Who is the biggest name cartoonist out there?
Oh, I'm asking, how do you feel like being, like, you're saying that the cartoon, the political cartoon industry is dominated by the left wing. How do you feel being, like, one of the few, I guess, big, major conservative cartoonists out there?
Well, I'm not one of the big name cartoonists, no. I don't really know. It's hard for me to get a gauge on it, but if I'm some kind of a celebrity, I'm a very minor one. However, that said, the past year has been a big successful year for us. With the help of my wife Tina, we now have over 100,000 Twitter followers, and we have a lot of followers on Facebook too. And we have a lot of big name people who follow us on Twitter, including Donald Trump's son and Ann Coulter, and all the big name conservatives. And so it's nice to have that kind of an audience. But, it doesn't go to my head. I don't have a big ego or anything like that, I guarantee you.
What attracted you, I guess, to say Donald Trump then? Because I know you were a big supporter of him, you drew many pro-Trump cartoons. What made you support him over, say, the other candidates?
Well, early on, I never followed Trump. I knew the name, and I thought he was just a big, bloated, egotistical billionaire. I never watched any of his TV shows, and I didn't pay much attention to him. But when he arrived in the political scene, one thing, he stood out for one big reason, and that was he was unafraid to be politically incorrect. And I said, wow, this guy is, he's not up there mouthing these empty platitudes like the other candidates, and that's when he first got my attention. Now, I'm more in alignment with people such as Ron Paul, and early on I supported Rand Paul. That's the one I was hoping would do better, and he didn't. So I said, well, you know what? The very least, Donald Trump is more of a populist. He's running in the Republican Party, but he's really more of an independent, and he's against, when I saw all the neocon GOP characters lined up against him, they all hated him. I mean, H.W. Bush voted for Hillary, for goodness sake.
I know.
So that should tell you something. So the fact that he was against the Republican establishment, and the Republican establishment also rigged primaries against Ron Paul, similar to what Hillary did against Bernie. So I kind of like started, as his campaign gained momentum, I got more and more interested in him. And although I still disagree on some of his policies, at the very least, he put the country first instead of globalism first, like Obama was doing. And that really, I said, you know what, I gotta, all these people I hate are against him, so it must be good.
Yeah, I can feel, I understand the feeling, and one thing I wanted to ask on top of that, you said you backed Donald Trump when, he was running, and when Ron Paul when he was running. Have you ever backed, like, anyone else in your lifetime, in terms of, like, for the presidency, beyond Ron Paul and Donald Trump? And Rand Paul, of course, sorry.
I've always been kind of an independent. I voted for John Anderson early on, when I was a young man.
All right.
I voted for Ross Perot, and I voted for Ralph Nader once, just because I think we need a viable third party here in America, and we don't really have it. We got two big corrupt machines. So Trump at least gave me a spark of hope that the people can have a say, and we can get our country back from the deep state and the people who are really running things behind the scenes. And that's it might be a forlorn hope, I don't know, because Trump populated his cabinet with a lot of Goldman Sachs men and the central banker types, and I didn't like that. But maybe, he's all we got, so I'm going to support him, and I hope he can drain that swamp. That's what I want to see. I want to see Hillary locked up.
Yeah, indeed.
People going to prison. I want to see, they deserve to go to prison for the crimes that are being committed right before our nose, but they seem also to be above the law. I want to see equal treatment under the law. Right now, until Hillary's in prison, we don't have that.
All right. When did you, I guess, become really, like, anti-Hillary and stuff like that, and when did you, I guess, become, very anti-Hillary? Because I, personally, from my point of view, I was already sort of slightly against her because I was a big fan of her opinion, like, censorship and video games, but then when I delved into it a bit more, I realised how corrupt she was. I was a bit like, oh, then it got worse from there. When did you, I guess, have that sort of moment, I guess?
I despise the Clintons right out of the gate.
All right.
I worked for a newspaper in Seattle, and I was ready to make my commute down into Seattle to get to work, and I remember turning on the TV, and I usually watch the morning news before I went into work. And here's this man talking to this woman, and he's running for president, and his name was Bill Clinton, and I looked at him, and I said, this guy doesn't have a chance. He's a phony baloney.
All right.
Who does he think he is? And I saw this puffed up, aggrandized, bloated ego, sleep talker, sometimes you can just get an impression about a person and you're right. In this case, I thought he was a con man.
All right.
And I was right. And his wife is actually part of that con, part of the grifting team. I call them grifters. What they're after is their own personal power and money. That's all. And they've gotten away with so much crime and corruption over the decades that it's mind-boggling. So no, I've never liked Hillary, never liked the Clintons from the very, very beginning.
How do you feel about, did you hear all the controversy yesterday about Donald Trump retweeting guys from Britain First and stuff like that? How do you feel about stuff like that?
Donald Trump tweeting his style?
He retweeted some tweets from the deputy leader of a group of far-right group over here called Britain First, and that dropped some controversy, especially over here with all the Labour MPs. So what do you feel about stuff like that?
Well, Donald Trump has a completely different style. I mean, we had the FDR, for example. He was the first president to utilize radio, and then we had JFK on the TV, and he was very telegenic. He knew how to use television to his advantage. That's one of the reasons why he beat Richard Nixon. And Donald Trump is the one president who knows how to meme, and he knows how to use Twitter to get his point across, and he creates very memorable things. I mean, think about the branding that he does, and this is where he has leverage to get his point across. And look how he branded, for example, Rocket Man, Little Rocket Man, North Korea, or Pocahontas for Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
And he has a name for everything, but that name, he knows that most Americans and British too, they don't have time to read, a lot of books and delve deeply into this material, but they do. But these memes that stick in their brains, and they're very persuasive. That's one of the reasons why he became president, because he was the first president, the first candidate to utilize the memeing process.
Yeah, it reminds me of It reminds me of I was flicking through a book by Niall Ferguson called The Square and the Tower, I think it's called, where he was talking about secret societies and stuff like that, and online societies. He's talking about how one of the reasons that, I understand you don't like Obama, but one advantage that he had was the fact that he utilised social media, whereas John McCain apparently didn't even use the internet. So, do you think the fact that Trump had a better sense of internet of the internet and how it worked propelled him during the election last year?
His approach as opposed to all the other candidates. None of the other candidates were effective because they were still trying to promulgate this image of political correctness, and they're afraid to say the wrong thing. So there's no fear in Trump. He's not afraid to tell it like it is. And when he does, there's always these what they call pearl clutchers. Pearl clutchers, they grab the pearls. Oh, that's terrible. We're supposed to be outraged.
I'm offended.
Yeah, but instead, what he gets applause. And the pearl clutchers are the ones who are laughed at.
Yeah.
It's kind of like his tactics are kind of like a political judo. You expect him to get overwhelmed by this superior force, but he just flips them on their ear, and he does it very deftly. Even though they say, well, he's stupid and he's this and he's that, and this is like none of these insults ever seem to stick to him. He uses them to his advantage, and next thing you know, he's winning.
Yeah.
That's why he's got like this attitude where he's an alpha male.
Yeah.
Want an alpha male. They didn't want a Jeb. So Jeb's saying to Mexico, we love you all. Come up here, we'll pay your way. We'll pay your taxes and bring your families. And then we love everybody. We'll learn to speak Spanish. That's what they call cuckoldry,
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and we're going to abandon our American culture and our language and everything because we love you. Yeah, and that doesn't work. And Trump did the opposite tack, of course, and made Jeb Bush look like a fool, which he is.
Well, to be fair, his brother wasn't, his brother didn't set a very high standard, did he? And I always found it interesting because, Jeb Bush, when he was running, people were saying, that he had a strong chance of winning and stuff like that. I remember, me being a Brit and stuff like that. I thought, So how do you feel about, the Bush family and, the Clinton family and stuff the Bush family? George W. Bush actually came out the other day, what was it? And he was, saying all this stuff, you did a cartoon on it, I think, actually, about Trump, him saying Trump's all this and that. So what do you think about, the
Bush family they were the face of the Republican Party, similar to the Clintons having the stranglehold on the Democrats. And are just as bad as the Clintons. They may be worse. I mean, we had this, you might have heard, we had Trump trying to reveal the Kennedy assassination documents. And he could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, everybody already knew this, there were more than one shooter in Dealey Plaza. And we knew that Kennedy was shot from a bullet from the grassy knoll in front, not a lone gun nut from behind like the CIA tried to get us to believe, like the Warren Commission. It all came out, but they kept saying, well, we can't release everything because, this is too, well, you know why they couldn't release it for 50 years, and after 50 years elapsed, they still couldn't? Because Daddy Bush is still alive, and he was in Dallas at the time, and he was working for the CIA, even though he lied, he said he wasn't. There's actually a picture of him showing him in Dallas at the time.
I thought it was the head of the CIA.
He was behind all this. These people are, his daddy, Prescott Bush, supported the Nazis. These people are very evil. They're all members of the Skull and Bones from Yale, and they are in lockstep with the corruption of the Clintons. They're friends with the Clintons. I mean, like I said earlier, Daddy Bush voted for Hillary because these people are all part of the same hydra. They want globalism. They're actually working against our country. And, I can go on about this for a long time, but to wrap it up, I mean, both the parties are corrupt, because both parties are being led by corrupt globalists like the Bushes and the Clintons. And we need to take these people down, and Trump is it.
And one other thing I wanted to ask was the fact that how do you feel about that Trump was friends with the Clintons at one point? Like, there's pictures of him at one of their weddings, I think. Do you think what are your feelings on that?
Trump doing what with the Clintons?
Oh, he was friends with them at one point. Not the case now, I assume.
Well, yeah, I don't know if he was friends. I wouldn't say he was friends with them. No, I mean he's a billionaire. He has to grease his skids. He can donate to all parties. If you look at, say, for example, Martha Stewart, she had a lot of money and she was successful, but she did not contribute to Hillary Clinton, and they got back at her by throwing her in jail because of some ridiculous impropriety with some stock trade she made. That's why rich and famous people have to donate, because they want protection. They don't want to have Hillary come after you. So he donated to Hillary. Probably donated to the Bushes too. He probably donates to everybody just to keep them off his back. That's just a tactic that billionaires have to do. So but I don't think, and certainly now, he has no love for Hillary whatsoever. I mean, that's obvious. I think he tried to, when he was first president, saying, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook, Hillary, but you're going to go away. And she didn't go away. She's always there. It's like that movie, What About Bob? You think she's gone? She's never gone. She's always there. And people hate her. People sick of her. I mean, even liberals despise her. She's fundamentally unlikable. So she needs to go away. If the Democrats ever want a chance, they're going to have to do something about the Clintons and get rid of that stranglehold that she and her money have on the party. And they amassed such a tremendous fortune with the Clinton Foundation. They basically bought out the Democratic Party. She thinks she could just roll in and buy out everybody. She got in there and just, we're going to, I'm going to control the Democratic Party. And Bernie will just have this little play, this little fake Tea Party that we're going to show and pretend that Bernie has a chance. And he never had a chance because it was all rigged. It was all rigged from the very beginning. Because Hillary, she was just going to go in and buy everything up and rig everything, and then she would have her coronation. Fortunately, people got to see that it was rigged and it was how corrupt it really was. But if the Democrats ever want to have a chance, they're going to have to extricate the Clintons from the political scene. And I don't know if they can do that. Because Hillary loves having the power. She loves the power and money. She's groomed herself her entire life for this. And she pushed herself almost to mental illness just so she could be the first female president, and it all blew up in her face. Thank goodness.
Is there anyone you would like? Yeah. Speaking about female presidents, is there anyone you would like to see become the first female president in terms of just like any of the big American politicians or anything like that? Just just slightly off topic.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of focused on what we have now. I mean, there are a lot of other people out there that are qualified, male and female. I'm not against having a female president.
I never said you were.
America first, and not a globalist.
Mm.
And not somebody who's kind of like a Trump. There's people Trump out there, and I know they're out there. There's plenty of conservative females, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. I don't have problem with a black president as long as they don't try to destroy the country like this phony Barack Obama, who had a fake birth certificate, a fake Social Security number. He probably has a fake marriage because he's gay, and Michelle Obama is probably a transsexual. The whole thing was a gigantic ruse. I would like to see an honest-to-goodness, real conservative black man. I don't care about their race or color or their creed, as long as they're for American culture and the values of the Constitution, instead of trying to hand everything over to some globalist body like the UN, like Obama kept trying to do. Or trying to bridge in Islam into America and claiming that Islam has been here all along, and it hasn't. He was probably our first Muslim president who kept it well hidden. Trump came in with a big broom and swept all that out of the White House. There are no more prayer rugs in the White House. There's no more honoring Ramadan and all that stuff. And to me, that's good too.
Indeed. One thing I wanted to ask, you're talking about like Obama, I would say allegedly just to make sure I don't get sued, had fake birth certificate and stuff like that. Where do you get the, what proof do you have of this? I'm not trying to be antagonistic, I'm just curious.
What proof?
Proof of that Obama had a fake Social Security.
The birth certificate and all that. Well, the Social Security number is a proven fraud. Birth certificate is a proven fraud. Obama came up with this PDF document that's proven to be 100% fake. Now, the liberal media is on his side, so they're going to say, "Oh, that's just conspiracy theory," and it's actually proven to be a fraud. He's a complete and utter fraud as a president. He shouldn't have ever been elected because he had Indonesian citizenship, and that was even on his card at Harvard when they revealed that when he got into Harvard he was Indonesian. So he was, he's a concoction. His grandfather was a CIA operative who found out that his daughter was fooling around with a communist in Hawaii. The communist was Frank Marshall Davis. So naturally, the CIA agent was in panic, and he says, "Well, I gotta, my daughter's pregnant," and he was pregnant with a child from a communist, a notorious communist, Frank Marshall Davis. So he got, at the time, they were trying to get Africans over into America to study and try to sway African sentiment away from communism. So he knew Barack Obama's father, not his real father, and he got him to agree to acknowledge that he was Barack Obama's dad in exchange for getting into Harvard.
All right.
That was the deal that was cut. But if you look at Barack Obama, he looks just like Frank Marshall Davis. He looks nothing like Barack Obama from Africa. So the whole thing was, from the get-go, it was all a big giant lie. Obama is nothing but a walking lie in my eyes. Everything he was trying to do. Of course, he's still adhered to all the socialist and communist ideology. He even said in his book that Frank Marshall Davis was his mentor. Why are they dropping off a child to Frank Marshall Davis's house for 3 hours at a time and let him instruct him in communism? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense that Frank Marshall Davis was his daddy. I'm convinced that he was.
Where do you get your information from, like all this sort of stuff from? Because just out of curiosity, what like news sources do you read? Like, because I know you're not a fan of the mainstream media. What would you say? Where do you get your like news information from?
Well, I get it from all kinds of places on the internet. You can imagine. I read a lot of different sites every day. Drudge Report, Zero Hedge is good. Alex Jones is all over the place too, and Mike Cernovich, I'm kind of aligned with him. His views. I just do a lot of. I read a lot of books. I just finished a biography of Andrew Jackson, and I could see a lot of parallels between Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump. I'm just kind of eclectic. I get it from all kinds of different places. I had this argument with my brother once. He says, well, you don't know anything because you only know what you read. And I said, well, that's true. I mean, I'm not omniscient. I'm not God. I have to, parse a lot of information. And my opinions on, for example, on Castro in Cuba. My brother is on the left.
Oh, right.
Arguments, How do you know Castro's a bad guy? Well, were you ever in Cuba? No, I was never in Cuba.
Yeah, that's the gay people we threw in prison.
No, that's true. But you come to a point where I'm not omniscient. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. You have to just make your way through life and try to put history together and piece the puzzle parts together and say, well, this makes sense. This is the picture that I'm seeing, and you have to stand by it. Otherwise, you're not able to have an opinion at all, or you're just going to be swayed about by any kind of wind that blows your way. You're just going to be tumbling down the road like a tumbleweed, and you're not going to be able to stand firm and put your foot down against corruption, right?
Yeah. One thing I also wanted to ask, because I remember reading one of your cartoons, which I was a little bit shocked by, like some of the things you talked about, like how apparently your son. Oh. Well, because of like the context, yeah. Apparently your son, when he went to college, didn't know about East and West Germany, which I was a little bit surprised by because I'd learned it over here in from in little old Blighty from secondary school. I was a bit surprised to know that he, is the American education system like that much of a shambles then that specific points like that in history, which are important, are not being discussed, or does it go any deeper than that?
I've done several cartoons on that subject, mostly against tyranny. East Germany was a spy state. They kept tabs on all the citizens, and they didn't want them stepping out of line. And I can see that starting to happen in America with all the. If you watch the movie Snow, you know what I'm talking about. Our privacy is going away. We're getting monitored, and the CIA, the NSA, all these spy agencies are going rogue, and we don't know, they're not answerable to the people. And so that's what I'm against. I want freedom. I want individual having control over their lives and not being forced to get vaccinated if they don't want to. I think taxes are a fundamental violation on private property. And increasingly we're getting more taxes, and we have no private property anymore, which means you cannot earn. In other words, there's an effort, there's a reward. When socialists, this is like the chain between the reward. Increasingly, we're putting a lot of effort. We're not getting any reward because it's all going to the system through via taxes. But we don't need an income tax here. We got along just fine with an income tax here for over a century until they got the Federal Reserve established in 1913, and then magically we need an income tax so we can pay interest on the debt. Well, that needs to go away. The Federal Reserve needs to go away. And if we can get that to go away, then maybe tyranny can also start to go away. What I want to do is make individualism and freedom fashionable again. Too many young people are being taught that socialism is the way to go. I read a statistic that like 50% now think socialism is the optimal system, even though history has proven over and over and over again that it's a failure. It's an abject failure that leads to poverty, pain, and death.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to say. That's why those cartoons I've done that are, they can be distilled down as anti-tyranny and anti-socialism.
Yeah, because I know that very much of where I come from, due to all the support like Jeremy Corbyn is getting, the Labour leader is very sort of that in mindset. Another thing I wanted to ask was that you say you criticize Obama and stuff. Do you think he was the worst president in your lifetime, or in like in the history of America potentially, or do you think there were worse?
Yes. I could. You don't have the time, but I could probably come up with 200 reasons why. He was there to destroy America and soften it up so we will accept what the George Bush Clinton plan was too, was to make this it's kind of like the EU. They wanted to have this one homage, and so the blob is good and nationalism is bad. Oh no, you can't be a nationalist because that's racist, isn't it? No, it's not. It's somebody. I like to go to Europe someday, and if I go to England, I want to go to the England I knew and saw and read about when I was a young man. I don't want to go there and go to Pakistan. I don't want to go to Germany and go to Somalia. I don't want to go to Italy and go to, you know what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, I know. And
why can't the French be proud of being French, German being proud of being German, and English being proud of being English?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we trashing hundreds of years of Western civilization that took many centuries to build up to get the freedom and enlightenment that we have? Why suddenly we want to just discard it all and embrace the third world? I don't understand that. That somehow the third world is superior. It's not. So if we invite all of Africa into Italy, Italy is no longer Italy. It becomes Africa. Why can't we just let the Africans stay where they're at and let them try to improve their own corrupt countries? Let them work on that. Why do we have to have them? Why do we have to have everybody in Syria go up to Sweden and live off the public side there? This is insanity, but it's being done on purpose by people such as George Soros, because they want to usher in their brand of socialist tyranny that they control, and they don't want anybody to be free. They basically want us to be their serfs. We're their slaves. That's what it boils down to. And this is not conspiracy theory. This is happening right now. That's one of the reasons Trump got elected, because they're trying to do the same thing in America and balkanize everything, because they know a divided country is weak, right? And so they want to have all these different languages spoken and different cultures practiced, and everybody fighting among themselves. There's no we want Sharia law instead of our Constitution. And no, we have to have a common culture, and to have a country, we need to have some kind of common glue. And in America, it's English language and the Constitution. But instead, I see. Let me tell you one little quick story. It's right. I grew up in West Texas. I spent a lot of years there. Went to high school and college there. And I worked at a bakery at night. And I worked alongside a lot of Mexican Americans. Now, these people were very hard working. They're good people. And in my day, they did not like illegal aliens. They didn't like them coming up and not even bothering to learn English. They thought that was disgraceful. No, if you're going to come up and you want to be American, you have to be an American first. You have to learn English. That was their mindset. Now the mindset is, oh no, we're just going to turn everything into Mexico. And we got a lot of in California now. It's like they don't even bother to learn English. They just want to turn it into Mexico. This is not a good trend. There's not a good trend in America. And Donald Trump wants to turn that around. And of course, he gets called racist every single day. It's not racist. It's just trying to protect our heritage. And that's the conservative angle. You want to conserve what you have, because sometimes some things are worth conserving, and they're good things, like Western civilization. And it's, so if somebody wants to call me racist, you're also calling these Mexican Americans that I knew in West Texas racist as well, because they were Americans first. They're proud of their Mexican heritage. they were Americans first. So that's the way it should be. Everybody can be proud of who they are. There's some commonality to it, and that's that we're Americans, and we stand up for the national anthem. We don't put our feet down, and that's why in some of my cartoons I try to emphasize that point. And if I catch flack for it, that's probably a good sign. That's making some people mad. And when you make somebody mad, they also remember, don't they? And if you do a cartoon, there's no emotional reaction. It doesn't annoy somebody. It means it's probably not an effective cartoon. So my cartoons, I want to try to make them memorable, and so a lot of people remember. That's good. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Obama, just someone said on Facebook, Obama's amazing, you fools. And another one, my sister actually had a question for you. She was asking if Trump doesn't run in 2020, you know, highly unlikely, but whatever, and it was Mike Pence versus Michelle Obama, who would you want to win?
Mike Pence versus who?
Michelle Obama, who would you want to win? But my sister's asking the question. Oh, the question was that... Oh, yeah, it was, my sister was asking if Trump hypothetically didn't run in 2020, which, you know, highly unlikely, but that's beside the point, and it was Mike Pence versus Michelle Obama, who would you want to win?
Oh, yeah, well, I Mike Pence or Michelle Obama. Yeah, there's some people wetting their finger and sticking it in the air to see how the Michelle Obama wind blows. She wouldn't have a chance.
Oh, no.
She wouldn't have a chance. No, it would be, you know, I think Trump will easily win. I'm kind of hoping Hillary wins once again, just so she can lose, because I wanted to see her, I want to see her even more humiliated. If she can't go to prison, at least she'll be in the prison of her own making, and that's being a three-time loser.
Yeah.
No, I don't see the Democrats. They're going to have to, if they want to have some kind of viable chance, it's got to be, they've got to stop pandering to the limousine liberals. This is Hillary's big downfall. What she failed to do, or what happened is she lost the support of the working class, because she didn't even go on any campaign speeches in the Rust Belt, and they were losing their jobs. And she instead concentrated on the big banks and her Hollywood friends and the liberal elite establishment in the big cities, and that's one of the reasons she lost. Now the Democrats are going to have to get back to their roots if they can ever have them, and that's like they're going to have to be on the side of the working man and the people who are working very hard just to try to make ends meet and get by, and then they're still losing their jobs. That's what they failed to do. Instead, Hillary listened to the central bankers, and she went out and made speeches to Goldman Sachs for millions of dollars. So that's where their allegiance lies. Not to Hillary's allegiance is not to the people. She doesn't like people. I mean, let's face it. If people pick up on that, what she likes is power, and she likes money. And she would have. If she runs again, she'll lose again. So the Democrats better wise up and try to get somebody who's. I don't think they will. I think there's too much damage done. Hillary sunk that ship, didn't she? She really did a self-destructive job with the Democratic Party to be over this nothing but a corrupt institution.
Another thing I also wanted to ask was that what was I going to ask? Do you think you say Trump's like this populist sort of stuff? Do you think there's any sort of like any people in European politics who you think are on the same plane, and do you think there's any hope for Europe in that regard?
Well, Merkel is the Hillary of Europe. And she has to go. And then Merkel, I mean, my goodness, no wonder Hillary admires her the most. I am not an expert in politics in Europe. I think there's going to have to be some kind of a grassroots revolution of people wanting to take their countries back. We started to see that a little bit in France with that a woman.
Marie Le Pen?
Well, they're gonna. And the problem is in Europe, you can't speak out. You can't speak the truth without being threatened to be thrown in jail. At least in America, we still have free speech per se until the the tech giants decide to shut down. They're doing that now. They're shutting down conservative voices.
Yeah.
Here, but in Europe, you actually got these hate speech laws that can really have a deleterious effect on somebody who wants to stand up and speak out. Hey, this unlimited immigration, this constant, persistent, unlimited immigration, is that really a good idea? Maybe we should try to take the country back and try to say that, hey, nationalism is okay. It's not fascism. It's not racism. It's patriotism, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to preserve the cultures and values of Western civilization. Otherwise, all that stuff is going to go away, and we're going to be replaced by some medieval system of we're all serfs and slaves to the 1/10 of 1%, the elite who run the show at the very top. We're going to have to bring them down instead. I hope if I ever do get to go to Europe, I want to go see it when it's still Europe. Like I said, I don't want to go to Paris and feel like I'm in Somalia. That's not racist. I want to hear French spoken. I don't want to hear African and rap music going on. I want to go there and be able to speak French. I took 4 semesters of it in college. I want to brush up on my French and be able to go out there and speak.
What do you think about, say...
That makes me a racist to some people, but that's the way it is. I'm an old man. I don't care. If they want to call me that, that's fine. I'm really calloused about that. I used to be very sensitive about being called a racist. And, oh, no, I can't be called that because that's like, I'm going to start a business and I'm going to be out on the streets because nobody wants to hire somebody who's perceived as a racist. But now it's become, that word has become so cliched and so eye-rolling. It doesn't really matter anymore. So I don't care what the names I get called anymore. I've got pretty well calloused over the past few years.
One thing I also wanted to ask was that what do you think about, say, something like Brexit in the UK, for example, and people like, say, populists in the UK, actually, like Nigel Farage and Anne-Marie Waters, for example, who are spouting the sort of stuff I guess Trump is spouting. What do you think of, say, the populist rise in the UK as demonstrated by stuff like Brexit?
Well, I like Nigel Farage a lot. I'm going to like everything he says. Now, do you have any political cartoonists in Britain who are conservative like me? Do you have a Ben Garrison counterpart in Britain?
I don't know. Actually, I'm not really sure. I don't think so. I think there might be the occasional one who writes for the sailors, like the Daily Mail or something like that. But I wouldn't know specifically. They're all left leaning, to my knowledge. Even though there's occasional gems.
Well, maybe your listeners, maybe some young man will be inspired to do it. Because we need more people to counter the vast leftist machine that has been in place for years and that's spewing out lies and disinformation. They've had control of the narrative. They're losing control of the narrative, not just in America, but in Europe too, and they're terrified of that. So they want to be able to control minds. So, yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. We just all have to be doing our part in speaking out. Stop being afraid. Stop being afraid of being called names. And, stand up for ourselves, really. I mean, we really want to be slaves to some monolithic globalist system and start being, hey, I have to get this chip now because you're not going to be part of society unless you get this chip inside you. You have to be vaccinated with there's hundreds of vaccines. And I don't want to give control of my individuality over to this hive. I want people to be able to stand up and speak out for freedom, and that's what it boils down to. And it's not just here in America, but everywhere in the world.
Another thing I would...
I don't know what I can do to help. I have to concentrate on my own country first. I mean, I get people say, why don't you draw cartoons about Trudeau? Yeah, I don't like Trudeau. Yeah, I'll do that. And I'll draw. Well, like I drew that...
It's 2015.
I drew the Brexit cartoon that was extremely popular.
Yeah.
I've got so much, especially with people in Britain, I've Germany too. I got a lot of compliments on that cartoon. Of course, the Guardian wrote a story about me. I was a cartoonist who could have worked for Joseph Goebbels. Because I actually had the temerity to show that maybe immigration is not such a good idea, is it? And it's like, oh no, you can't say that. And you're a Nazi, Ben Garrison. They actually had a columnist write a story about me. What a dangerous nut job. It was pretty funny.
Someone has actually made a just good point here. They're talking about this cartoons from the Spectator, which I forgot to mention that. You were talking about right-wing cartoons over in this country. Like, they were talking about the Spectator right-wing outlet. Just wanted to throw that in there. Another thing I wanted to ask, who do you think is the best president of your lifetime, do you think? The best president just in general?
Well, the best president of my lifetime, let's see, there are a lot of bad presidents, but I think the one that came closest was probably Ronald Reagan.
Oh, right.
And unfortunately, his first term, he started to turn things around, and then he got shot, and then he was never the same after that. I think the CIA, Bush was the vice president, right?
Oh, yeah.
He got the grapple hooks into him, and he was not very effectual in second term. So he would be the closest one. The worst president and the most vile criminal president was LBJ.
Oh, right.
The most president who was most destructive to our country was Barack Obama. With maybe Jimmy Carter a second. But LBJ was the most disgusting criminal we've ever had as a president. He was a murderer. And he, the FBI came out looking at the records that were revealed. The CIA records came out that LBJ Johnson was a former Ku Klux Klan member.
Oh, was it?
That shows you how much he cared about African Americans. He actually ruined African Americans by making them all get on the welfare dole instead of standing up for themselves and being independent like they were. Now, a lot of blacks had their own communities. Of course, they had segregation, but they were very successful. They had solid family units, and they were doctors and lawyers and dentists. They were successful as a class of people. But after LBJ, we see now 7% of the African Americans were born out of wedlock, and the family got destroyed because the family got replaced by government thanks to LBJ. Now you got dependent on government handouts, and then that was a very destructive thing LBJ did under the guise of we want to help people. And it's always these egalitarian motives. Oh, we want to help people. We're going to solve this problem, and then the government makes it 10 times worse. That's when you see the government saying, we're going to help you, you better run away, because it's going to be bad. Every time the government gets their grapple heads into something, it's a disaster.
Isn't that what Ronald Reagan said? You were talking about Ronald Reagan he said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language were, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, or something like that. One other thing...
We've had some pretty bad presidents. Nixon wasn't very good. Carter was a disaster. The Bush presidencies were disasters. He wanted to put us on the road to globalism. Danny Bush, was the first one to say, we have a new world order, 1,000 points of light, and this is such a wonderful thing, this new world order. No, it's not. What they were doing is trying to destroy America and replace us with this globalist vision where the elite at the top control everybody. And at the end of the day, they're going to start killing people because this is their planet. It's not your planet; it's theirs. And they're going to tell you how it's going to be, and you're going to like it because hey, don't you want to save the planet?
One other thing I wanted to ask is that I know you're, I'm not sure if fan is the right word, of Andrew Jackson. Why do you think Andrew Jackson was a good president?
Andrew Jackson? Well, first of all, the first thing you mentioned Andrew Jackson today, all the young people, because they train him in schools, that Andrew Jackson was one of the worst presidents because he hurt Indians. You have to look at it in the context of its day. Andrew Jackson, first of all, this man had vast amount of courage. Can you imagine, for example, I'm just going to make one aside because he was in many duels. was in his 40s when a man he had an argument with a man, insulted his honor, and so they were going to have a duel. Now, Andrew Jackson was fearless, but this young man, he was a crack shot. He was an expert with a gun, and he knew he was going to kill Andrew Jackson. So they get out on the field, and they have the duel, and the young man shoots first, and he's stunned because he knows he shot Andrew Jackson. He shot right at him, but Andrew Jackson did not budge. He just stood there in his long overcoat. And then calmly, Andrew Jackson reaches in for his pistol, points it at the young man, and shoots him dead. Now, it turns out that Andrew Jackson had a bullet lodged in one of his large ribs, which kept him just inches from his heart. He should have died, but the rib cut the bullet from killing him. But he didn't even reveal that he was shot. That's what the young man was like stunned. I know I shot him. Why isn't he dropping? Because Andrew Jackson, that's the kind of guts you had in those days. Andrew Jackson grew up, fighting Indians. He was extremely brave. They called him Old Hickory because he was the toughest man, and that kind of bravery and skill on battlefields really inspired men. Everybody loved him, and everybody was willing to die for him, including in the Battle of New Orleans, which he beat the British. Now, but for the larger issue, Andrew Jackson was first and foremost against the Federalists. He was against the Federalists of the day, were more like the globalists, right? They wanted central banking. They wanted the Bank of England to be fundamentally in control of our money supply. And Andrew Jackson said, no, these people are dead at vipers, and I'm going to rout them out. And it took him 2 terms to finally end the central bankers and toss them out. Now, the first thing to happen when you go against the central bankers, they start contracting money supply to cause a depression, and that's what happened in America. And they expected Andrew Jackson to cave in. So we're going to ruin your economy if you don't give in to us. And he refused to budge because he's Old Hickory. He doesn't budge. He's going to rout them out. And then after the end of the second term, he did. And that makes him one of our greatest presidents because he wanted the country to be turned to. He wanted the country to remain a republic, and he wanted the country to remain true to the Constitution. And that's what we need again. And so we have a parallel now where what happened in 2008 where the banks were bailed out, and the central banker said, if you don't bail us out, we're going to collapse your economy. And so the Congress and the president back then had any kind of backbone, which they didn't. They would have stood up to them and say, okay, well, this is it then, and we're going to collapse the banks, we're going to decentralize your bankers, and we're going to nationalize the banks because, hey, the Constitution says the Congress shall regulate and create money, not use any private central bankers. So we're going to allow the Congress to create its own money again, and this money will be interest-free. In other words, it's not debt slave money. We're going to create money commensurate with production from the economy. That's what they should have done. But we had a President Bush who was a globalist who was in league with all the bankers, and so they said, well, the economy will collapse, so we're going to allow you bankers to have more power instead of punishing you for your crimes. We're going to allow you to have more power over us, and that's what happened because we didn't have an Andrew Jackson. Now, Trump, ironically, if you look at the recent picture of Trump, he had this meeting with some Indians, and they were greatly offended because Trump restored a portrait of Andrew Jackson to the White House. How symbolic is that? Because Trump is like Andrew Jackson, a populist president. Remember when Jackson got into office, he was the system, hated him. I mean, even Thomas Jefferson didn't like him because he was like this, oh man, he's a rough-talking guy. He doesn't have, he's crude. We need class and sophistication in the White House. We can't put somebody like some backwoodsman like Andrew Jackson in there who's going to ruin everything. And that's exactly what he did. And that's because he didn't ruin it. His elitist attitude needed to be back in his place. So I'm hoping that Trump can do the same. He's only been a year in office. I'm giving him a chance. He's made some good progress. He thumbed his nose on the malarkey, the climate change malarkey. You know, we've got a more conservative Supreme Court justice now, bringing jobs back. He still wants to build the wall. He needs to for American culture and the Constitution first and foremost. And so that's enough for me to hang my hat on. You know, so I'll continue to support him.
Okay. I'm just going to wrap up now, pretty much. But one thing I wanted to lastly to ask you: what is your favourite song, just so I can play it on the radio?
My favorite song?
Yeah, just so I can play it on the radio, just because I have to wrap this up.
Well, I don't listen to a lot of music. I don't know if I can name a favorite song. I like old jazz tunes from the 30s.
That's all right. I
listen to classical music.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's not a song, but the most moving thing I've ever heard in my life
Yeah.
is the ending of Mahler's Second Symphony. To me, that was the best singing I've ever heard.
Donna's Second Symphony, yeah?
It's too bad that young people don't listen to classical music as much these days, and I wish they would, because they're missing out on a lot.
Alright. Sure, I'll just play that for you quickly, and then, yeah, I think we should wrap this up. So, I'm just looking up the... what's it called again? Sorry, just need to find it.
My website?
No. Oh, yeah. I'll look at that in a second. The classical song you liked. Just I'll put that on very quickly.
Well, anybody can find it on the internet. They type in Mahler, the Resurrection Symphony. It's the Second Symphony.
Okay.
And if they don't want to listen to the entire thing, just go to the very end, because Mahler incorporates everything in the human experience into a few short minutes. And it's the best finale I've ever heard, and it's like connects you with the entire universe. That's the way I can describe it.
Okay.
And if somebody will just listen to that might maybe open the doorway to listen to all the other great classical music of the past. I mean, I listen to rock and roll and all that other stuff too, but it's just not comparable. So yeah, my first love has always been classical music. I've been listening to it since I was a kid, and I'd like to see more young people get into that, because they're not attending as many. I mean, if you go to a classical music concert, it's all old people, etc., like my age. I want to see young people discover classical music again and get out of this cul-de-sac of hip hop and rap, and it's just ugly stuff.
I'm more of a heavy metal guy myself. I do listen to soul classical music, and
my son is into that. My son likes all that heavy metal. I was like, why don't you listen to this? That's his generation, I guess.
I'm surprised people of my generation beyond me and a few others who actually like heavy metal.
Well, my son is a millennial, and I'm a boomer.
All right.
We have that kind of dynamic tension right there, don't we?
Yeah, I'm just playing the song just to fade us off, pretty much. Thank you for talking to me, Ben Garrison. Very nice to talk to you. Sorry for all the little kinks we had. I'm just gonna finish off with the Symphony Number 2. Hopefully, I found the right one. But thank you very much for talking.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll talk to you again maybe at some point. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for that, guys. That was this week's edition of Debates and Discussions, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thankfully, we eventually managed to get it working. We got a nice long interview with the cartoonist Ben Garrison. If you want to check out his website is graphics.com. His Twitter handle is @grrgraphics. I'll upload it to YouTube and SoundCloud later. My name is Edward Howard. My Twitter handle is EdwardHoward11. My Facebook thing is Edward Howard. And next week, it has the Donnie Darko logo. If it's hard to find, I think it's the Donnie Darko logo with get a Donnie Darko poster with for Britain in the bottom corner. Speaking of for Britain, I'm going to be hopefully interviewing Anne-Marie Waters next week, the leader of the party. Wonderful woman. Can't wait to talk to her. I've been Edward Howard. This has been Debates and Discussions. I hope to speak with you again at some point. I'll just play my jingle again. Very nice to have Ben Garrison on. Thank you very much. Nice to let someone else listen to heavy metal beyond me. Okay. Thank you guys, everyone, for this wonderful thing. And hopefully I should see you next week with Anne-Marie Waters. Thank you very much. Have a good day.